Hello everyone, my name is Alex with the Sachem Public Library Studio, and today we will be going over an intermediate TinkerCAD class, making garden accessories. So this class assumes that you have at least some experience with TinkerCAD and you are a little comfortable using this online tool. If you're going to be following along, I recommend using a keyboard and mouse. Or if you have a laptop, plug in a mouse. This can be a little bit harder to do with a trackpad. You can do it, it's just a little more inconvenient. If you have a mouse, I would recommend using one. So if you aren't signed in already, you're going to click this sign in button in the top right hand corner. You would think you're going to click on this, but even though this is a program we're offering, you're going to sign in with your normal email or username right here. Or you can sign in with a social media account if you have one of those linked. So you're going to put in your email address here. Okay, great. Now that you're back, you should be logged in. So after you put in your email and password, you should see this screen right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to click this button right here, create a new design. This will bring us back into our workspace here. I'll just give a quick overview if you're not super refreshed on TinkerCAD. So in the top left-hand corner here, you have the name of your object. So you can call this whatever it is you want. We will call it Birdhouse. So this is going to be the demo that I'm making for you today. I'm going to make a simple birdhouse for you guys to follow along with. Over here, you have the adjustment for the work plane. So you can move the work plane around. You can also move the work plane around by right-clicking and holding on your mouse, and then moving your mouse around. You have different zoom functions over here to zoom to a selected object, zoom back out, zoom in general, zoom out in general. And then over in the top right hand corner here, we have group and ungroup, which will combine our objects or separate them if we have combined them already. Then you have import and export, which we'll get to once we're done with our design. You can adjust your work plane here. You can adjust your rulers. You can choose from different shapes and sections of shapes. These are the shapes that are in whatever section you have specified here. Over here is your grid. I'm going to recommend that everyone, if you're comfortable with working in the imperial system, changes this from millimeters to inches. And then you can leave this as is, or you can make it some size, or you could choose a printer here. So I'm going to go with 8x8 and hit update grid, and now here's our grid. The snap grid size here determines how far an object will move when you tell it to move one distance. So right now it's moving in increments of 1/8 of an inch. If we make this smaller, it will move in increments of 1/4 of an inch at a time, or so on. So if you're trying to get something to align and you need it to be more exact and you can't get it to fit just right, you might want to make this denomination smaller, and that will allow for a more perfect fit against another object. So let's get started working on our birdhouse. So to do this, we're going to want a base. Then we're going to have the exterior walls of the birdhouse. We're going to want to make a hole, or an entryway for birds to get in and out of, and then we're going to need to give that birdhouse a roof. We're going to go with a cylindrical design here because this is the easiest for our 3D printer to create without adding lots of different support structures. So you can copy this one, you can make edits to what I'm about to do and make adjustments as you see fit. You can also, of course, build something completely different from what I'm going to be demoing for you today. But we're going to start with a birdhouse. So the first thing I want to do is create a lower base. So I'm going to make this circle, this cylinder here, more smooth by giving it the most amount of sides that I can. That will smooth out the edges. Now if you want something that looks more blocky like this, you can certainly do that. You can just set that whatever you like. I like the look of it being more smooth, so I'm going to go with that. Now I want the base to be roughly 4 inches by 4 inches. And I don't want the base to be bigger than 1/4 of an inch tall. So this is where our actual birdhouse is going to sit on. This is going to be the floor, essentially. So now we're going to drag out a cylinder again. And this is going to be the outer wall of our birdhouse. So again, you can adjust the sides or bevel as you see fit. We're going to make this slightly smaller than the base that we made, since I want a little bit of an edge all around the outside of our shape here. So if I look around it, it looks pretty even to me. Can maybe move this way a little bit, so we'll make this 1/8 of an inch. That's too far. So maybe a 1/16. We're going to 32nd, so we'll move it there. So that, to me, looks like it's centered within those, within the base. So we can leave that alone right where it is. That's great. Now I want to adjust the height. So the total height of the birdhouse that I want, we're going to adjust with the center dot here. 1 inch is probably too small, so we can make this something like 5 or 6 inches. So I'll make this 5. That might be too tall, so we'll go with 4. The reason why I say it's too tall is we're still going to have to add the roof on, and we do have a limited print volume to work with. In terms of the printers at the Sachem library, you can only print so high. We can, of course, shrink things back down if they are slightly too big. So not to worry there, you could make this 15 by 15 by 18 if you wanted to, and we would just shrink it down to a printable size that would fit on our build plate. So now that we have this, we obviously need to make an area in here for birds to use. It being completely solid really won't do anything. And then we're also going to need to make some sort of door or entryway for the birds to get in and out of. So you guessed it, another cylinder. So we're going to drag this cylinder in. This cylinder was 3 3/4 inches. So I'm going to make this one 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And we're going to drag this up. And I'm going to center that again, just like I did with the other one. Doesn't have to be perfect, but get it pretty close. Okay, that's pretty centered. I want that smoothed out. And now, what I need to check out is how far down the cylinder is going. You can see this dotted line right here, down at the bottom on the work plane. That's showing where the cylinder is going down to, the hole. I don't want it to cut all the way through my object because I want it to go right about to the top of the floor. So I'm going to grab the top here. I'm going to pull it up ever so slightly so it's about right there. So now if we click on it, you can see that that dotted line is right about even with the top of our base. So now if we have this, we can group these objects together here, and we'll have our outer shape. And then we cut a hole in the middle that allows a bird to fit in there. You can put bird seed in there if you'd like. You can add a stand on the side so that way they can roost if you'd like. What we need to do now is add a place for a bird to get into. You can go with any number of shapes here. You could go with something really crazy and custom, or you can pick something simple. I'm going to go with a sphere. I recommend using some sort of roundish object or something that curves up to a point, or even a triangle or a pyramid or a cone would work well. It will print better if it is not completely flat on the top. So if I were to use a box, right? So if I drag a box in here, and then I make this box the entryway for birds to use my birdhouse, and then I group these objects together, looks nice, but this area here, right at the top of this hole, is going to be very hard to print. It's going to look very stringy, and it really won't come out the way that you'd like it without adding a lot of supports. So to combat that, what we're going to do is forgo using a square, and we're going to use something like a sphere or a cylinder. So I've taken this sphere here and I've elongated it a little bit in one direction. So it's currently 1 inch by 1.7 inches. So I can make this 2.5 by I can maybe make that a little bit smaller. So let's make this 2. So say this is my entrance right here for my birdhouse. I put this about halfway through, whatever you think looks nice. We'll go with right there. And I'm going to make it into a hole. And I'm going to highlight everything and click the group button again. And now we have cut out a hole right into our birdhouse, and that shape will be more easily printed. If you don't like the indent there, you can of course push that sphere back into the shape more. So something like this. And then if I were to group these like this, now that indent is much less pronounced. It looks more even throughout. Now that we have our hole for our birds to get into and an area for them to sit in or eat birdseed or whatnot, we're going to want to make the roof. So we're going to want to put something up here that looks nice, that isn't too flat or hard to print. So my suggestion would be something like a cone. This is very good for what we're going to be doing. So there are a ton of options for the cone here. So we can adjust the number of sides, and similar to a cylinder, the number of sides you add adjusts the smoothness of the cylinder. So if you want it to look a little rigid, you can add less sides. So we can adjust that as we go. I'm going to make this smooth just because I prefer that look, but you can go with something a little more intricate looking like that. So now what we need to do is we're going to make a copy of this. We're going to have 2 of these cones, and we're going to have one that's going to be the actual cone. So we're going to make this 2 by 2 just to start. We're going to resize this later. 2 by 2 by 2. So there's our cone, and we're going to make this slightly smaller than that. So 1.75 by 1.75 by 1.75. All right, now that we have this cone here, what I want to do is I want to turn that smaller cone into a hole, and I'm going to merge the 2 cones together. Now, if you look from underneath, we can move that cone until it's centered within the other one, right about there. And then I can group these 2 cones together. And now I have a hollowed out shape that's going to sit on the top of my birdhouse. So we'll zoom back in over here. We're going to drag the cone out and up. And this is 4 by 4. So we're going to have to make this 4 by 4 as well. 4 by 4. And now we need to make sure that it's touching. So we're going to drag this down. And then you want to move your camera angle around to make sure that it's actually touching. Sometimes it looks like it is, but it may in fact be sitting just above your actual piece right there. See how there's a little bit of gap between those 2 pieces? That's no good. You want to make sure that there is absolutely no gap, and then that dotted line is inside of this other object here. So that's right where we want it. Now we can move this around and position it where we're happy with. So we could put it right there, for example. That gives a little bit of a lip all the way around the edge. And then we can center it. Okay, that looks about even. So now what we can do is we can again group these. And now we have a finished birdhouse. You can add stuff inside, or you can put a post on the outside here. So if you wanted something for a bird to roost on outside of the birdhouse, what we can do is we can take this cylinder and turn it into a pole. So we'll make this 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch by 1.5 inches tall. Now that we have our post, we're going to want to rotate that post so that way we can actually use it. So we're going to want this one here, and we're going to rotate it by 90 degrees. And then we got to figure out where we want to put the post. Maybe we put it below, above. We can take your pick. Depending on where you put your hole, you might want it above or below. In this case, I'll put it above here. So I'll position it right where I want it. I'll move that up. And now see how it's floating in air, even though this way it looks like it is going inside of our birdhouse, it is in fact not. So we will move it until it is, and I would like to position it right above the center of that hole, right there. Perfect. Now that we have that, we can group these together. And we have our finished birdhouse. Now you can move the hole anywhere you'd like. You could put the hole on top and this piece on bottom if you'd like. You could completely get rid of that other piece. So if you want to get rid of it, just click the ungroup button and then they will become separate objects again. And then you can either move it or delete it and get rid of it. You can also put it down here if you'd like. That might work too. One other thing you might want to add once you're done deciding if you want this piece here is some way to hang this birdhouse. Right now, it can't really hang very well, so I would recommend adding either a hook or a circle to the top of this birdhouse. That way you can either tie fishing line or some kind of other material to this, and then you can tie it to a tree branch or something similar. So if you go through the basic shapes, we can take a look at the torus right here. So we'll drag this in and we'll rotate this to 90 degrees. If you can't get it exact like me right here, if this isn't working for you, you can click right in that box. So you move it a little bit and then you can type in here 90 and then it will go exactly to that size and that rotation angle. So what I want to do now is I want to put this at the top of our birdhouse. And I'm going to put it right in the center. Move it up a little bit more if I wanted to, so I can put it like that, for example. So now that's all one piece. You can move it down a little bit too if you'd like. Let me adjust our snap grid a little bit and we'll move this up a tiny bit more. Right there. And you could even elongate this a little bit if you wanted to make this a little bit obtuse. You could make that a little bit longer. Now you have a wider hole. It's going to depend what you want to put in here. If this is going on a hook already of a certain size, you're going to want to make sure that that is going to fit the whatever you're putting it on. So if you're happy with that, what we can do now is we can again group everything together. And now we have our birdhouse with an entryway, a place to roost, and something to hang the birdhouse with. Now you can get creative and add some textured siding. You can add a window or something similar to this onto here. And once you're done doing all your editing and making it look the way that you want your birdhouse to look, what you want to do now is you want to click export. And because we only have one object in here, you can leave this alone as the default, everything in the design. But say you happened to make a few different birdhouses. You had some revisions and some looked a little strange and they were a little weird, like that one. Or they were a little too small and they looked a little shrunken. So if you click this, it's going to give us all three of these, not just this one. So if you have some other objects that you don't want exported, click on the one thing that you want, click export, and make sure it says the selected shape. And now when you click export, it will only give us this one object and it will ignore these other two pieces over here, or whatever other objects you might have in TinkerCAD. So click export, make sure it's selected the object that you want, and then all you're going to do is click on STL right here. That will download to your computer at whatever you named it. And now what you want to do is you want to send this file over to us so that way we can 3D print them for you. So what I recommend doing is either saving the name of your file with the information that you need or putting that information in the email. That way we know who you are and what you want with this birdhouse. So if you are part of the class, when you send us an email, include your full name, your library card number, the best way that we can contact you either via email or phone, as well as the file which you should attach, and then what color that you want your birdhouse printed. If the birdhouse is too big, we can give you a call and let you know that we need to size it down. If it fits within our build plate, we will print it at the specified size. So once you have your file, you're going to email the library at studio, S-T-U-D-I-O, at sachemlibrary.org. And again, in that email, you're going to include your full name, your library card number. You're going to attach the file, tell us what color you want your birdhouse printed in, and tell us the best way that we can contact you to let you know that your print is finished. One other thing to note when we're printing is that the color that you put in here has nothing to do with the color that you're going to be printing in. This color is just for design function in TinkerCAD. It has nothing to do with the actual print color. So you can make this purple, but if we print it with white filament, it's going to be white. Make sure to tell us what color you want your birdhouse. That way we can print it the correct color. And one other thing to note about color is that we can only print in one color at a time. So we can't print your roof green and the hole here purple and the walls red and the base green. We can only print one color. So if you want multiple colors, what we recommend doing is printing in white, giving it a clear coat or something similar, and then painting on top of the clear coat with an acrylic or other similar paint, and that will give you the colors that you're looking for. And if you want one static color, you can of course just tell us what color you'd like. Now one more time, the email is studio, S-T-U-D-I-O, at sachemlibrary.org. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us or call us at 631-588-5024 and just ask for the studio. Thank you everyone for watching and have a great day.